Hi, welcome to my studio. My name's Kris. In this short video, I'm going to show you how I created this ink and wash watercolor of a wild rose. Let's get started. The other day, I saw this wild rose growing near my house and took this reference picture. I've painted this painting a couple times, but today I decided to do an ink and wash. I went ahead and used a 3B pencil and sketched in my reference image freehand. You can see me doing that here. Then I went ahead and took my Duke 209 fountain pen. I have another video here on my channel that talks about this particular fountain pen and why I like it. It's a Fude nib pen, meaning it has a slightly curved nib point like that. It's a wonderful fountain pen. I highly recommend it. And I filled that pen with my Noodler's black waterproof ink. And I'll have links to all these supplies in the description below. Using this fountain pen, I next trace over my pencil drawing, as you can see I'm doing here. I'm really carefully looking at my reference image still at this point. I'm not slavishly following my pencil lines. In fact, I'm editing even as I draw with the ink pen, getting a little bit more accurate rendering of my subject matter. This is a contour line drawing, so I'm just worried about getting the outline of the primary shapes here of the rose and the leaves. Now I've got my palette here. This is filled with my Mijello Mission Gold Pure Pigment set. I also have a video about that. And this is a great set of paints. If you're looking to buy an entire set, maybe you're just getting started in watercolor and you need to fill your palette, I have reviews of both this palette and this paint set on my channel, so check it out. All right, I've given it enough time now for the Noodler's waterproof ink to dry. This is completely dry. And of course, that's important to do that before you start. This is waterproof ink, so it will not move in the process of painting it or applying a wash. I have decided for my colors, I am going to use my quinacridone violet color, Quin Violet. Again, this is in the Mijello Pure Pigment set. And I'm mixing a little of my rose madder. Because there you go, I want it to be a little bit warmer than that Quin Violet color was. It was a little too cool. So I'm bringing in rose madder, and I like that mixture there. And now I'm going to go ahead and apply my wash here. I am still paying attention to my reference image in terms of retaining some highlights that I think are important here to keep a sense of highlights, sunlight glinting off of the rose. This is a wild rose. Okay, and again, I'm not really concerned about exactly following the lines. That's part of the character and quaintness, I think, of this technique, is that you don't need to follow the lines exactly. And I'm just mixing up various different colors here. By the way, I didn't mention this. I'm not usually use arches, but this time I am using a Canson watercolor paper. So this is a pulp paper, not a rag 100% cotton paper, which is what I usually use. But I decided to go ahead and use a little different paper. And why is that? This paper is smoother and So it works with the fountain pen and ink a little bit better than a rougher paper like the rag paper. Now I'm going to go ahead, clean my brush off completely, and I'm going to mix up my green for the background foliage. I have a green here, but you know, I think what I'm going to do instead is use my green gold, which is really more of a, closer to a yellow color when it dries than it is a green, believe it or not. You wouldn't tell that from what I just, let's mix some of this up separately here, yeah. Get a nice big puddle of this color. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and apply this to my background. I'm going to put down just a little bit. I'm coming in mostly just close into the flower and using the side of the brush. Move this out some. Then come back with clear water and drag that, soften the edges and drag it out. I do not want to fill the entire background with color. I'm going to leave parts of this very light, and I'm also not worried about touching that pink of the rose because I want some blending of the colors there at the edges because that gives it a lot of character. And we'll come in here. This is all, just the only thing I'm doing here is avoiding the stem areas. This is a real fun way just to get some practice in with your watercolors. Do a quick sketch of something that interests you. And I highly recommend it as a fun technique. You can even do this on location and plein air, painting in location or in the open air. And I think you'll enjoy doing that. There you go. Love it. I got some blending of the colors here. And I've got a nice edge. You can see this is dry, since I'm painting the background, well, I'm doing all this painting actually wet on dry. So it's drying really quickly, creating hard edges, but I want that. Now I'm going to come in and mix up some colors for that stem area. I have some burnt umber. It's actually Van Dyke Brown in this set, the Mijello Mission Gold set. It's called Van Dyke Brown, but it's essentially, it's PBR7, which is like a burnt umber. I'm going to mix that with a little bit of my ultramarine blue. And I'm mixing that off camera. Sorry, you can't see that, but that's what I'm mixing. And I'm just going to come in and do a real quick stem. Nice dark. Just a little bit of that where I see the darkest aspects of that stem. If it spreads a little too much, you can take a dry brush, pick it up. Then I want to come in with more, it's got quite a red tone to the stem, so I'm going to come back in with some of my permanent red deep. And just add a little color to that. I think that looks good. By the way, I'm using a Princeton Aqua Elite round number 12. It's a synthetic brush. It's got a great tip, holds a lot of water. For this size painting, it's about perfect because it's a small format painting, so you don't want too big of a brush. There you go. All right, what I'm going to do now is just let this dry completely, and then I'm going to come back just with some glazing to create some nice techniques to accentuate the shape of the petals. All right, the first wash is completely dry. You can see here, it has lightened a little bit. And I have some blooms and things in the background, but I don't mind that. I actually kind of like some of that. Gives texture to the background. I have some nice blending of colors in here where I just dropped down different colors and they blended nicely, you know, wet on wet application. I've got what you might call a vignette style of painting where I've left white around the outside and just focused on the subject matter. And I'm liking this. Now I'm going to go ahead and mix up a few more colors and do glazing. So glazing is where we really emphasize the transparent quality of our paint by putting down pigment over dried pigment, and this allows a layering effect and allows one color to shine through the next, and I just love that. So the reason I'm doing that here is I feel like I need to accentuate the darker areas of the rose, especially underneath these petals here. The sun is coming from the upper left, so the top left of the flower is light with some highlights, and the bottom right should be darker. And just find these areas where there's like cast shadow, or trying to accentuate the form of this petal. Here in particular, it's one in the center, it's quite dark. Just trying to accentuate the form by putting in some dark areas. Now, if I find those lines are a little too stark, hard-edged lines, I can come in with a wet brush and soften them. Very important technique you should learn to do. And I'm going to leave some sharp edges and some areas I don't want that, so kind of creating contrast there. Now this paper really dries quickly, I've noticed. Again, this is not my normal paper. I usually use Arches 100% cotton, but for this quick exercise I decided to use a little less expensive paper. This is Canson, and as a result, I'm finding you have to adjust, right? When you pick up a new paper, new equipment, new supplies, I mean, you need to kind of adjust your style a little bit, because, and what I'm noticing is it really dries quick, and so it's more, you're more apt to get blooms and things going on, where if you paint over an area that's already started to dry, you're going to get a bloom. This is fun. Now, again, I don't need to do this everywhere. I just am picking carefully some areas where I think I need to kind of accentuate the form of the petals a little bit. There's actually some dark on these back petals as well. Okay, that's good. Now what I've done with the rose, I also now want to do with the background, and that is to accentuate some of the darker areas in the background and even do some negative painting. So, we see here, this really can, when you master some negative painting techniques, it can really cause your subject matter to really pop off the page as you create greater contrast around your primary subject area. Now, I don't want to just paint by number some of these areas, so I'm going to kind of accentuate some areas and darken some areas, and then lift some paint here. So we get this look, and I'm mostly interested in getting this high contrast around the primary subject, which is the rose itself, and some of these leaves that I've drawn in close. And so by creating high contrast, by darkening the background behind them, I'm able to get a little bit of fun contrast there. And I put in some dark, but I don't want it to go everywhere, so I'm going to get some, kind of what I did before, water on here, soften the edge, put in a little more of a blue emphasis in here. Don't want all of these background areas to be the exact same color. Just doesn't, that's not the way the real world looks. So we want to vary the colors a bit. And yeah, so by adding in blue and then adding in this yellow, which is actually called green gold, sorry. Sorry to confuse you, it's not really yellow. It's, green gold, again, Mijello Mission Gold. I like that. I like putting down the brush and almost rolling the brush here to get some different brush strokes and different effects. It's kind of fun. And don't just always use your brush or hold your brush in the same manner. All your brush strokes look alike then. Try to change it up a bit. Sometimes I just take the brush after I've put down some paint and it's wet, just take some pigment on the brush and just dab. That can create some fun look too. There we go. Yeah, I'm liking that. I really want to, yeah, I think it's darker, kind of naturally darker in the lower right area than it is in the upper left. So I'm not going to carry that through around to the other side of the flower. I think I'm going to stop here for my dark negative painting background. One thing I see though is that this kind of needs to continue down in here. There we go. All right, I'm ready to add my signature to this finished piece. So here's my finished painting, Wild Rose, ink and wash technique. I will put links to everything used in this video tutorial in the description below. Check those out if you're interested. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I put out a new video about once a week. Thanks. Have a great day.